Thank you, Speaker. And in the conclusion to the member for Eureka's contribution on this MPI that I'm more than happy to support the member for Warrandyte on, I tell you what Victorians deserve, Speaker. Victorians deserve a government that is actually concerned and accountable when it comes to community safety. Because right now, all they're concerned about is looking back and sledging the opposition for historical. There's nothing constructive that was contributed in that contribution then that took accountability for the youth crime crisis in this state and or offered any solutions. The solutions that we have offered up time and time again: break bail, face jail; Jack's Laws, which removes machetes and knives, it gives police back their powers to scan for knives and weapons. Our $100 million Safer Communities plan as well will invest in prevention programs, and that is just the beginning. And this is not just a Metro problem, Speaker. This is a very, very real problem in my electorate of Mildura, and in fact right across regional Victoria, as the member for Morwell spoke about during question time this afternoon. And it's not just an abstract debate about slogans, although the Labor government are the master at slogans with very little substance behind it. It is very real. It is lived every day by community members in my electorate, in the member for Morwell's electorate, in the member for Ovens Valley electorate. And it is the same faces we know, particularly in Mildura, and I speak to our local constabulary every week, and we know that it is the same faces appearing before the courts time and time and time again. Kids as young as 10. I spoke in the last session of Parliament about a young boy who is 11 who had stolen a car, driven it at 140 k's an hour. And these kids, and we know, particularly our police, know who they are, and they're sick of seeing the same faces over and over again. In fact, police are exhausted. They're simply exhausted. Victims are frightened. Community members are frightened, and morale is frighteningly low, and it's faltering even further because they feel unsupported by a system that's meant to protect them. And this is not just perception, Speaker. This is data. This is data. Compared with this time last year, offences committed by young people aged 10 to 17 are up 14%. That's 1 every 21 minutes in this state. Among those aged 10 to 14, offences have jumped 12%. Among 15 to 17-year-olds, up 15%. When you compare those numbers to a decade ago, the picture is even more damning. Youth offending up 40% overall. 10 to 14-year-olds up 47% and 15 to 17-year-olds up 37%. And that's not just a blip on the radar. This is the trajectory that youth crime is on now, because we have a government that refuses to take accountability and acknowledge that there is even a problem. All they will acknowledge, the Premier said herself that the Melbourne CBD is safe. Now, I can tell you, last Friday in the very early hours of the morning, I leave my apartment in the dark often, and walking up Little Bourke Street, and I'd seen the member for Warrandyte's Instagram with the news story about a stabbing in Little Bourke Street that was 2 weeks after the incident itself. Now, I was walking up Little Bourke Street and I was followed all the way up to Parliament by, I didn't get a great look, but I would imagine a teenager that was walking past me and doubled back and turned around and followed me all the way back up to here before disappearing into Parliament Station. Now, I am not, and I say this often, I look like I would be hard work for someone to attack, and I probably would be hard work. And that's never happened to me before, and I now carry a personal alarm. For good reason. I'm 6 foot tall, and again, I don't look like I'd be easy to take down. So for me, being scared to walk 2 blocks between here and Little Bourke Street and carrying a personal alarm, and then the Premier to sit there and say that the CBD is safe, how incredibly patronising to the people of Melbourne and Victoria. Incredibly patronising. So you cannot fix a system that is broken without first acknowledging that there is a problem. And this is fuelled by a government that's weakened deterrence against crime. They've softened the bail laws, even though the slogan that they use here, the slogan is the toughest bail laws in Australia. What rot. And left regional services without the services that we need and without police resources, of course. And we know the police in Mildura do an extraordinary job. And our Superintendent, John O'Connor, is soon to retire. Shout out to John. He is a magnificent man. He does incredible work, and it will be sad to see him go. And they do extraordinary work under enormous pressure. And they know many of these kids by name. In fact, last time when I raised a question in question time, I had police members stop me in the street. Police members that I didn't know, particularly when they're dressed in their civvies. But they stopped me in the street to tell me more stories. And one I found incredibly alarming was the story of there is an 11 or 12-year-old boy who is a repeat offender. He had committed an ag-burg on an elderly woman's home, stolen a phone whilst he was there, and of course had gone through the photos on this phone. So he knew who again, it's a small town, 56,000 people, but it's a small town. He knew who her grandkids were. This boy ran into this elderly woman at the supermarket and started taunting her that he knew now who her grandkids were and they better watch their back, and started taunting her that he knew her family, to the point where this poor elderly woman had to take out an intervention order. Wow. And we know half the time they're not worth the paper they're written on anyway, particularly for youth offenders. Tell me once again how accountability is being taken by this government when we have things like that happening in not just Victoria, but in Mildura. It is absolutely disgusting. Here's some more examples. The Sunraysia Daily have done a huge amount of reporting on this, and Alan Murphy report every week. And I say all the time, I talk about crime in this place every week, and there are articles written by Murph every week in the Sunny Daily. There was a story about groups of youths going store to store in Langtree Mall. We know that happens. And Mildura Central, engaging in shoplifting sprees. Another article describes a man who joined a group of young boys after they stole a car in Mildura. Now, that man should be a role model to these kids. Traders in the Mildura CBD have voiced that youth crime has gone to the next level. And local business owners are reporting repeated thefts, intimidation, and a sense that the system isn't backing them. And yet we are told time and time again that the system does back them and they have the toughest bail laws, which is absolutely ridiculous. This is government failure in one of the fundamental things a government is supposed to do: look after the safety of its people. And they have failed, and they continue to, because they simply won't take accountability. Speaker, the people of Mildura are proud, resilient, and we are compassionate. And I have no doubt that the weakened bail laws and the crime policies of the Allen Labor government have been whipped up with some sort of utopian ideology and compassion. But I tell you what, when there are no consequences for compassion, it turns into chaos, and it is turned into a crisis. So what will the Nationals and Liberals do? As I said at the beginning, Speaker, break bail, face jail. Common sense. We believe in giving kids a chance, but there has to be real consequences for the chaos that is being caused. We'll introduce Jack's Law, of course, which gives powers to police to scan for knives and for weapons on the street, which will remove those knives and weapons. Instead of a bin costing $13 million, that those offenders will obviously go and put their machetes in. Again, what a joke. Our $100 million Safer Communities plan invests in prevention programs, unlike the ones that are apparently there now, and coppers tell me all the time when you lift the veil on those things, there is nothing there. It is time for a fresh start, Victoria. It really is time. A fresh start with less waste, lower taxes, less crime. It's time to get on with it.